We're on 6.
And welcome back to Pastor Plek's podcast. I am your host, Pastor Plek, and with me in the studio is none other than Mrs. Katie Sass. How are you, Katie?
Doing great.
And also, to my left, your right, is Jeff Mitchell. And Jeff is a community group leader here at Wells Branch Community Church, and we are so glad to have you, Jeff. And did you just come right off work?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Did you build something today?
Bottom of a garage.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is a real man who knows how to use tools.
You're in for a treat, guys.
You are going to be in for a treat. Yeah. A man. So this is a man who knows how to use tools and how to use his brain when it comes to theology. So we're going to have some tough questions for Jeff, whose group meets on what night?
Wednesdays at 6:15. And live for More Center.
So if you want to be a part of an incredible, theologically astute group that can also build things, then you need to come to Jeff's group on Wednesdays. All right. So I want to talk about accountability because that's where we left off yesterday, and we wrapped up the series called I See You, which is like all about being known as opposed to being admired. And we talked about the story of Bathsheba, which you remarked, Katie, that this would be a great movie.
Oh, yeah. In today's Hollywood, it would be an awesome movie.
It would be an awesome movie. And here's the thing that would be great about it. It ends in just sheer tragedy. So like I think the cool thing right now for movies and shows, it just goes darker and darker into the abyss. And this story...
But I think that part would get rewritten.
You think so?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I think...
Because people want a happy ending.
No, they don't. Have you not watched like every show and every movie that's like comes out? It's like people die, tragedy sort of wins out. It's sad. It's like into the domain of darkness everything's headed. Yeah, anyway.
Maybe I just don't watch those.
What shows do you watch?
We watch a lot of Modern Family.
Okay, yeah.
So,
all right.
yeah.
You're in sitcom world. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair. I like SEAL Team is just getting darker and darker into despair. Anyway, so that's what I've been watching. How about you?
I watch a lot of documentaries.
Oh, what?
I like plane crashes.
See? There you go.
Yeah, true.
All right, so the documentary is a plane crash.
Air disasters.
So we're going to talk about an incredible plane crash here, and it's the story of David and Bathsheba. And really the first question that I'm going to really put out for Jeff is this, and this is a bit of a complicated question, so I'm going to do my best to interpret. Said, David not going out to fight carries massive implications, doesn't it? In other words, in the very beginning in 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 1, it says, in the spring of the year, the time when kings go out to battle, David sent Joab, but David remained at Jerusalem. So he says, we just saw in Deuteronomy, which by just saw, we mean like about roughly 600, 700 years before that, ish, how Israel is captured, enslaved, and time again. It's more like in Judges, but whatever. Time and again, because they ignored God's command to drive out everyone from the promised land. They didn't, and as a result, morality goes out the window, and they end up enslaved over and over again. Would that have been in people's mind when he sends other people out, setting the standard for his mighty men that God's command is more important than anything else? Maybe. I don't know
it's like a novel of a question.
It is a novel of a question. I think what he's saying is whenever this is written, are people thinking about judges? And I would probably say no. I think that people are just thinking about that. The thing that would be in their mind is that Samuel, the last judge, was asked by the people to bring them a king. And he warns them. He says, listen, if you get a king, this king is going to conscript your sons. He's going to marry your daughters. He's going to do all the things that powerful people do, and it's totally in the authority of God. Why would you want to do that? God is your king. Trust him. To which people are like, we want a king we can see. We want a king we can see that goes out to the battlefield and fights and leads and blah, blah, blah. And it's just, I want someone I can see, I can trust. And I think there's a part of us that all want that. But to this point, David isn't seen on the battlefield. David is back in Jerusalem, not doing what he's been called to do and what his job requires. And this sets him up for some idle time. When you remove yourself from the purpose that God has given you, and now you have all this free time, that's like the worst thing in the world, which is why I think for many, retirement becomes a place of really self-centeredness as opposed to a place where retirement could be a place of serving, when you get to live out the full purpose of God. We'll have to bring Robert up here to talk more about that. But any thoughts on that specifically about David not doing his job as a king and commander, and what the effect would have been on Israel? Jeff.
I like your answer.
Pretty much summed it up. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So
I thought you were going to give me a stab, and then you took it. I loved it.
okay. All right.
do
Well,
better.
sorry about that. I'll give you another stab at
I
this
feel like
one.
I would have just lost a lot of hope in him.
Yeah.
Like,
Like a lot of hope, just in general. Hey, where's the king? Oh, he's back filling out TPS reports, or like, he's.
well, but like as a woman, I'd probably be like, really, you greedy little man.
Yeah. But
It would have been hard for me to
hold
overcome.
on. But would there not been a part of you like, you know what? You killed the giant. You fought all these wars. You got all the Philistine foreskins. You've killed a bunch of people. You've been on the run for 7 years. You've been battling it out against Saul. You deserve a break from this battle.
No, I wouldn't.
You would just be like, yeah, double down, get out there.
That's not what happens in the movies.
Well, yeah, that's why
Right?
it would make a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, like, I don't know. It would be hard for me to show grace. I mean, ultimately, I would have to.
Show grace.
I would have to show grace.
But let's just say you were, like you're a handmaiden.
If I wasn't a
back in the day.
believer, if I was a handmaid, okay, let's not bring up that show. It's not really an appropriate show.
I wasn't going to that show. Oh my God. I'm just talking about, back in the day.
Like an actual in real life.
Yeah, because,
Okay.
you're living in 1040 AD or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me
BC.
to think back to like what kind of personality I would have.
I
in
don't
that
think your
time
personality
period.
would have changed. It's just your decor and role would change.
Yeah. It would have just been hard for me to overcome that and show grace.
Okay, fair enough. And so would you
So
be...
I'm like, dude, you have enough wives. Like, how many boobs do you need in your life? Like, how many, like really, like how, why
do you think it was about the boobs, though?
I don't know.
There's just an attractive
You
woman.
just have a man that sees a naked woman.
And he's like, I want that.
Now he's like, oh, okay.
But he's given the opportunity not to have that. And what I mean by that, they're saying, hey, isn't that, your primary counselor, Ahithophel? It's his granddaughter. Do you really want to just go and sleep with her?
The question I have, though, is it considered cheating? Because he already has, like, technically he's married, but he has multiple wives.
It's cheating
But-
because she's married. Because she's married.
But is he cheating?
No.
Is it
Well,
double cheating?
So
Because in my head, I'm like, why is it a double standard that like he has all of these wives?
This
that
is
he
the
could
whole
have
thing
just
of being a
gone
king.
back
Yeah.
and said, okay, actually, let me pick from my like 100 wives if I want to have sex right now. Oh, okay, like I want to get it on. Like, let me just go pick one of my wives instead of pick someone else's.
you are bringing up a great point. Let's see if we can.
Like, why is it not cheating on his part?
All right, so this is this is really good. Okay.
I'm like, that
All right,
part
so
just irritates me.
Can I just bring out a Bible verse because I think this is super important. It's Deuteronomy 17. Okay, Deuteronomy. I know that this is where like all of us are reading our Bibles. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Thrilling.
Let me see if I can pull up Deuteronomy 17 because this is where where Moses is writing this out, what God's law is. When you come into the land that the Lord your God is giving you and you possess it and dwell in it and then say, I will set a king over me like all the nations that are around me. You may indeed set a king over you whom the Lord your God will choose. One from among your brothers you shall set as king over you. And you may not put a foreigner over you who is not your brother.
None of this is making sense yet.
Hold on. Only he must not acquire many horses for himself or cause the people to return to Egypt in order to acquire many horses, since the Lord has said to you, you shall never return that way again. And he shall not acquire many wives for himself, lest his heart turn away, nor shall he acquire for himself excessive silver and gold. So he disobeyed. Now,
He
here's
disobeyed by having so many wives.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's already disobeying.
Yep. And what point does it become many wives?
More than
More
one.
than one.
Um, maybe. I mean, I feel like this is where it's really hard. I mean, is two okay? I mean, like in this time for a king, I think the biggest thing here was
But were they wives or concubines?
they had wives and concubines
So he had plenty,
of action.
and he's, oh my God. So it just like that part, I'm like,
No, I think you're right. I mean, clearly he is in the wrong, but oddly,
but that's not what he even gets in trouble for. Like, that's not even.
right. In fact, God said if those were not enough, he would have given him much more.
Yeah.
So the biggest part for David is he's not trusting the Lord. He's not seeking God. And that's the biggest issue.
Were the king's wives pampered? Like, was it a cush
Oh,
life
yeah.
for the king's wife?
Are you kidding me? Yeah. That's a good life. I mean, you have action like every now and then. In fact, you're probably pretty lonely most of the time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Or you're hanging out with other wives going like, who pick me?
It's like a never-ending episode of The Bachelor.
That is exactly what it is. Only, the harem and, you probably have the man responsible for taking care of, he's a...
But David's not responsible.
Not for the harem. I mean, there's a person that works in the palace that probably has his, he's snipped, and so he can't procreate or have action with the lady folk.
Wait, say that again.
The eunuch.
Eunuch.
I almost said Enoch, and I was like, wait, that's
Yeah,
not it.
the guy probably back there is a eunuch.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it was in Esther, right?
Yeah, but that totally different world. But
Yeah,
I can't
anyways.
imagine you would just be like, hey.
I feel like I got us on a rabbit trail that we didn't plan for.
No, but I think I appreciate the fact that you're bringing that up because I think that is an issue. Clearly, David isn't following the Lord fully with all of his wives because that's clearly against Deuteronomy 17.
Like, that's not something you brought up yesterday, and so I was like,
But
why?
Well, the weird part is like God with David, God's like, don't worry about that one. Or you could put it, and I don't think he would literally say that because he didn't, but he is making an exception for David for some reason out of grace or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there are
reason is.
plenty. I mean, he should have been.
But and maybe this is the part where David doesn't because David has such a heart after God. God is like.
I mean, he was repentant, wasn't he?
I mean, he was, but I mean.
I still like.
But this is where when you read Deuteronomy 17, wouldn't that where you would just go, I'm a sinner.
I mean, if he was repentant, he would have, gone down to one wife.
Well, no,
But-
I don't think you'd do that, right? This is the part where if you divorce your wife, that's a greater wrong.
Ugh.
So this is the part where, he marries Michael. Michael gets married off to some other guy. He married by Saul, so his wife is Michaal, and then Michael gets married off to some other guy in Saul's kingdom, and then he eventually goes.
Wait, Michael's a chick name in the Bible?
Uh-huh.
Why am I just now learning that?
It's a classic name, Michael.
Did everyone know that?
Yeah. It's funny. I actually know a buddy of mine, Randy, one of my really good friends. His wife was named Michael. When I was like, why would you name your kid Michael? I like that. That would make no sense. I mean, like if
It's
you have a
so
daughter, you're like,
funny.
I know, Michael. She's like, hopefully Randy's not listening to this, but like, I mean, like, why would you do that? Why would you name your daughter Michael after Saul's daughter that David married? Now, granted, she did some good. She hid David, had made a little idol and stuff so David could sneak out the
Maybe
window.
I've just always read it differently, like as
Michael?
McCall.
McCall.
I knew a McCall though, and she was a girl.
Oh,
but you spelled
you
it
did.
like it was spelled Michael,
Yeah.
but she pronounced it McCall.
Her name was probably Michael, but she just pronounced it that way.
Maybe so.
Yeah, because whenever back in the olden days before, same-sex marriage was a thing, like my buddy would be like, hey, you'd see Randy and Michael's name on and it'd be like,
Well, I mean, I went to school with a Randy, but it was spelled with an I.
Okay.
And she was
Well, that makes sense.
Like her name was Randy, R-A-N-D-I.
Randy with an I is okay. It's kind of like Brandy.
Yeah.
Not really. Okay.
Not really.
All right. Anyway, so David is beyond the law here, but God's given him grace for whatever reason, only God knows. And then because he's not content with the hundreds of wives that he has, he then goes after Bathsheba. And he takes
A hot chick taking a bath.
Exactly. And you would think at some point that this would not work. And he it's his counselor, his advisor's granddaughter, and it is one of his mighty men, one of the guys that are like special forces warrior that he's gone to battle with, has fought alongside him all these years. It's his wife. And when that's brought up, he still goes, nah, send her over. And so at what point, and this is the hard part for me, like what, I talked about this yesterday in the terms of target fixation. And I think, because you're a motorcycle person, right?
That's the motorcycle person.
Yeah, Robert's the motorcycle
Yeah.
guy.
Well, we need to get Robert up. Jeff,
Yeah.
I thought you were a motorcycle guy.
I'm just here to laugh this morning.
Well, target fixation is when you look at an object and then you can't stop looking at it and then you collide into it. And so that's exactly what happens here is that David sees Bathsheba, he can't stop looking, and then he collides with it, and his whole life just shatters from there. So ultimately, Joab has an opportunity to kind of stop the bleeding, so to speak, and tell him, hey, don't kill off Uriah. You've already had one wrong. Let's not make it two. But maybe he doesn't have the whole picture. But more importantly, he's already murdered somebody, so why would he stop him? And then Nathan finally comes up, risks his own life to confront David and puts the fire out. But David's life is spiraling out of control. He's going to have his own son sleep with all of his wives on top of the roof of the palace, on the advice of Ahithophel, to kind of make it come full circle. It's like such a wild thing to me. This is why this story
I want to see it in a movie.
Yeah, this definitely needs to be a movie. Like, Hollywood, will you not get what? You got to use the Bible. It is a great script. Anyway, so that's what happens. Accountability is thrown out the window. So let's get real quick to this. Katie, who in your life is holding you accountable at this moment?
So I don't have like an official accountability partner.
But you've had accountability partners.
Yeah, I've had accountability. I mean,
So right now you're like, I don't need that.
I mean, yesterday I did think of the question. I was like, who can I ask to be like my official, like who can I join in together to
for
be
you,
an
this is
official
the reason why I
accountability
think you
partner?
are important. You have such an easy time going from a stranger to deep friend. Is it difficult for you to go from deep friend to accountability forever friend?
No, I think I don't know that I see a major need for. I mean, it's like Ryan holds me accountable spiritually.
Okay.
Like anytime I've been discipled, they have held me accountable. But when I was a community group shepherd, I had a group of girls that like we did accountability together. But as of lately, there's no one official.
So would this be
my
the part where you're like walking leisurely on the rooftop, staring over the precipice and seeing
A naked dude?
Or an anger moment with your child, or
oh yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
But like I talk to other moms about things, but I wouldn't say
You have a
there's
unique
maybe
ability.
Annika. I think Annika is somebody that I talk to a lot about.
Because you're in her community group, and so the reason why I think I brought this up is that nobody goes out looking for accountability. Like on the day that you need it in general, right? Like if you're faced with something and you don't have someone to go and ask you.
You either hit rock bottom or you are just being really sensitive to the Holy Spirit.
So when you were at the low point of your life, which was a couple years ago, right? Did you have someone to talk to then?
No.
Okay. So Jeff, how about for you? What does accountability look like for you?
I've got a couple people. Jacob Walden is and Robert Sass are probably my two primary accountability folks. More structured with Jacob. We have questions that we ask back and forth, accountability questions. Just about things with work, specific things.
Like what kind of work question? That's an interesting thing.
have I spent more than X hours at home working, like on computer work or whatever, versus spending time with my wife, like when I'm at home.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
It's really easy to get wrapped up in doing proposals or what have you after swinging hammers at work all day. So now I've worked it out to do that in the morning, or since Christian's awesome, I've got him there. I could do stuff at work while he's working.
Oh, that's great.
Stuff. It's wonderful. Robert also, he holds me accountable, and he's been praying a lot about like the fostering stuff and get my butt in gear as far as taking action there.
Hold on. You said something that I thought was really powerful. Take action.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is where a lot of us sort of struggle because we have great things. And I think I asked you a couple podcasts ago, do you have any goals? And you're like, not really.
Yeah.
And I was like, is there anything that you want to do? Well, I want to be a better parent. And I said, do you want to be? And I think that's where we kind of.
Yeah.
And so we all have, I think, goals that are maybe unstated, but if you're able to say them out loud to somebody.
But if you don't set tangible action items, then you're not going to meet that goal.
Right.
That's why we need to set tangible action items.
So what? Yeah. So give me. So talk to our, the podcast land about what like action. What does taking action mean?
For example, like when we needed to submit the new application, Robert and I talked about it for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. Like, I need to get this submitted, submit the application, get the paperwork done. And then one time, Robert just asked me, he's like, can you do this by Thursday? It was 3 days from now. And so I was like, okay.
So when Robert does that, do you feel empowered, loved? Do you feel like, could you do it without that?
It would have taken longer.
Why does the accountability matter? Because I think I'm trying to convince Katie that she needs this, and so I need you to help me.
Because I know Robert loves me. I know we have a relationship, and we've a very deep relationship. I know that he is praying for us. He tells me all the time that he's praying for us. He's praying for children, and I know that him being stern or forcing me into discipline is out of love, and it's for my benefit, for God's kingdom's benefit, because he wants to see us with kids. So I know that his interest in his heart is for the well-being of my family and myself.
So this is the next question. Oh, were you going to say something?
Oh, well, I was just going to, like, the deadline part was really good because what I've learned is some personalities need a deadline.
Are you one of those or no?
Yes.
Oh.
There are times where Ryan has like said, "Hey, can you do this by tomorrow?" Or like, "Can you do this by the end of the week?" Do you
feel angst about getting it done by that time, or is it just like?
No, actually like it feels.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. There's like a day that there's an actual time that I need to do this instead of this magical land that I live in of procrastination. And so it's, some personalities need a
here's
deadline.
probably why.
Exact way with
the reason why you feel that you don't need accountability is probably the reason, because I can understand. When you have small children, you don't have any time to, at least this would be my opinion, you don't have time to do anything in the darkness because you're so overwhelmed by the present person that's screaming at you.
Yeah, when I just want to turn my brain off when she's asleep. So,
whenever your kid sleeps, you sleep. That's kind of the rule.
Or I lay on the couch and not think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So here's a question that kind of in the accountability world. How do we know when someone is holding you accountable because they love you and want to see you succeed versus someone wanting you to become like them as far as your personality and thinking? Because there are a lot of people who will not accept you or be your friend unless you talk, think, act, believe, and behave exactly like them, and will disciple you, train you accordingly.
That sounds a little extreme.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like the simplest way to answer that is if their guidance isn't rooted in scripture, then that's where you find the flaw in that.
Sure. Well, but
because like,
yeah.
Well, and if if the Holy Spirit is kind of like flutter, I don't know any other word but flutter. If the Holy Spirit is fluttering in you and
man, I sure hope the Holy Spirit doesn't flutter in me. I don't know how I feel about that.
Okay. Why wouldn't you want the Holy Spirit to flutter?
I don't know. That just sounds very girly.
Like such a nice,
Isn't that what it says in Genesis? Hovering.
Hovering. Very, very different.
Hovering, fluttering. Okay,
fluttering. So it just I think of butterflies.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking of, and I was like, Now, butterflies for you, that really works. I think you can do well with a butterfly. Me, I feel like I hang out.
It's either butterflies or fire.
Butterflies and
butterflies or fire. Those are the two ways the Holy Spirit works in me. It's either butterflies that flutter, or it's fire where my heart is on fire.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are the two extremes that I live in. But I think that if there is something stirring in you to be like, this just doesn't feel right, then you can get a second opinion. Like you can talk to someone else and say, hey, this is kind of the issue that I might be feeling with my accountability partner. Can you guide me and let me know, is this right or is this not right? I mean,
well, let me ask you this question. They say something here, because there are a lot of people who will not accept you or be your friend unless you talk, think, act, believe, and behave exactly like them. Is that true?
I can't find that to be completely true.
Because you're really unique as a person, and I think you have lots of friends that don't try to conform you.
Oh yeah, I've been discipled by a handful of women that.
Or maybe that's why you don't have accountability, because nobody really wants to be your friend.
Maybe nobody wants to be my friend. But I feel like it's okay. Here's why it's hard. Well, I'll talk about that after.
Okay.
Let me
First,
answer this
point
question.
one. Yeah.
Like if you are starting to feel judged or criticized by your accountability partner because you might not think, act, speak like them, then there is someone else. Like I don't know, you could talk to. They could talk to you.
Yeah,
they could talk to Robert. They could talk. Like
there's plenty of people that
I
just don't know these. I just have never met somebody that wouldn't talk to me or wouldn't accept me or be my friend unless I talked, thought, acted, and believed and behaved like them.
Because if that is your perspective, then
there's a common thread between all those people.
It leans a little more towards
victim
mentality of like, oh, I don't feel accepted because I'm not like you. Well,
is that true?
Is that true?
Or is it
or is there actually a sinful tendency in you that you are ignoring?
Or you're judging the person before they even had an opportunity to connect with you?
And I think sometimes when we feel rejected, we instantly put a lot of the weight on the other person.
Oh, nice. What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
That we instantly start judging them. And so if you feel rejected, like if I felt rejected by you, then I would immediately think of everything I didn't like about you.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing too is we all have different pasts, and who knows what this question asker's past is. Let's say that they were burned by both their parents when they were a child, or they were raped, or whatever the case may be. I mean,
wow,
who knows?
Went to extreme. All right, I'm with you. All right.
The point is, we don't know the background, and
That's
so
fair.
that does bring a lot of baggage into your future relationship.
Yeah.
So if somebody's trying to hold someone that has a lot of that baggage and hasn't healed from that properly, and they do ask an accountability question, hey, have you looked at porn this week or whatever, they could look at that as an attack as they're used to.
I see what you're saying. Because they're so used to being attacked in their life, they're just like...
When someone is trying to love them,
they can't see it as love.
It's hard, yeah.
So just on that, how have you seen? We can use Robert for example. Are you exactly like Robert?
No.
All right. So he's
a lot better looking than I am.
He is. He's a very good looking man. And so how do you, or how have you? How has his differences actually benefited you? Might be a good way to put that.
We are very similar in a lot of ways, but I think that's because of our discipleship. And
what do you mean by that? You've become more like Robert over time?
Yes, definitely. I have aspirations for eldership in large part, but because of him, community group shepherding, evangelism, a lot of the same ministries, just because I look up to and respect him. I see where he's at. I see the people that really love him. I really feel his love in a very tangible way.
Yeah.
He helps me out. We go out and do things. We go to the dog park, not as often as we should, but we do serve in a lot of ministries together.
Right.
He calls. Well, we used to talk every single day. He would call me every day at 8 a.m. and then he retired and. Now he sleeps until like noon. But no, I'm just kidding. And so. I know that he loves me because he was very intentional about loving me.
Okay.
And I could have easily taken that as like he's just wanting to like harass me or be on top of me or conform me.
Okay,
into him
that's
or
a good,
whatever.
because there is a way to misconstrue the way
Yeah.
somebody is coming at you. I don't know if that's is
Trying to pour into you.
trying to pour into you or communicating with you, that you have, because of the baggage of your past, you're making an assumption about, and maybe you projected past people onto them, and so
Yeah.
therefore you're now taking love as an attack, and I just don't think people have time for that. And gosh, I know that sounds flippant, but what I mean by that
It's really
is
hard to change someone's personality.
it is, but in church world, you pursue people to a point where you want to engage them, not run them off.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the last thing I want to do is have a hard conversation with somebody, because I like it when people like me. But at the same time, I'm going to, if I love that person, I'm going to pursue them and overcome the obstacle of the risk of relationship.
Yeah.
So to this person, I would say it might be that you've become difficult, and so the person that you're dealing with has to overcome your sort of pushback against them, and so they're having to come maybe ask the same question several different ways, because you're dodging it left and right because you're not wanting to deal with the actual reality, which I get.
It's easier to say, oh, you just don't accept me, so I don't want to do this anymore, than to lean into that and ask yourself, okay, what is God trying to teach me right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So speaking of which, you asked us to hold you accountable to something several episodes ago.
I did?
Yeah, you ready? It was, you were supposed to go have lunch with, or ask.
Oh. She doesn't even like...
Remember, because you said she was a real
Yes.
legitimate friend, and so therefore I said, oh, if she's a real friend, you're probably going to ask her to
Well,
lunch.
I think she thinks I'm weird, so she walks by me every time.
So hold
I
on,
see her.
could this be the
She'll-
same thing right here, where
Oh,
you're now
is this the ex?
assuming? Yeah, this is
Okay.
Ryan's ex, who's now going to be her friend because they hung out and talked about Ryan's type A's. But I thought you said you were going to go approach her for lunch.
Well, so I've only seen her like twice since that time.
Two
And
missed
have you
opportunities.
Jeff,
Katie,
you're walking a thin line right now.
good thing Robert's about to
I-
come
So
up here.
we're just holding you accountable to what you
But
said you
what
were
if
going
it's
to do.
something that she doesn't want? Like,
Well-
it's not that like I'm like, oh, I'm going to avoid her at all costs. It's when she sees me, she walks faster to her car. So
That's where you go, hey, what was her name?
Maybe she has a gift for you in her car that you
I'm
keep
so
running off. and
mortified
not-
that I told you. Does Robert, do you even know this story? Did Deb tell you that I talked to Corrine at the school? Yeah.
So our live studio audience now includes Robert's
She
house.
thinks that
Yeah.
I honestly think she might be super weirded out by the fact that I like approached her and like tried to be friends. And so
So do you think, but this person is asking a question just like that. Maybe Corinne thinks that you're trying to make her act, think,
No.
act, believe, and behave exactly like
that
her.
is literally not the same thing.
Oh. But
I I think she just might be like, we were very intimate with the same person. And so I'm not gonna, this is not a comfortable situation for me. And so now I think seeing this I mean, Robert knows everything about his son. It's fine. So
keep going. Sorry. I have to recover over here.
Robert's not dumb, okay? So what are you even laughing at? I can't pinpoint what you're laughing
I
at.
I don't know. I'm laughing at Chris.
It's just that the whole thing is so insane. I mean,
I thought she would want to be friends. And I don't think she does.
okay, well, that's good. Maybe that's okay for you guys not to be friends.
Yeah, it might be okay.
But you have to be aware enough that maybe that's not your friend. Because I thought last time we talked about this, you
I
thought
totally
for sure.
thought, and I thought that like the next time I saw her, then
You guys
it
would
would
be
be
like,
like
"Let's
friendlier, and she just kind of like
Get
seemed
Ryan
like she
coffee
was in a
cups
hurry,
and-
and
yeah.
yeah. Oh my gosh, that would be a great Christmas
Well.
present. Anyways, going back to the question,
Yeah.
instead of embarrassing me
Sorry.
in front of our live audience,
That's right.
So I think the simple way to answer this question is there guidance based on scripture? Are they
Okay.
using scripture to disciple you and guide you Or if you do feel that they're trying to change your personality, because God is not personality bias. Like, like God gave us all individual personalities.
No, that's good.
And if it seems like, if you feel like they're trying to conform you or change you, because there's a big difference in change towards growth and change towards identity.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if you feel that way, then it is important to come and talk to someone else that has a higher authority.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and I think the cool thing about at least the accountability questions that I've developed over time, a lot from Robert, but then over time I developed some more of my own with the next community groups or community discipleship groups I've had that I've developed on my own. And I challenge the person, hey, what are some things you want me to hold you accountable to? And so we'll go over like, hey, in your parenting, is anger an issue? Like, oh yeah, it kind of is. All right, so what question are you gonna develop? So then I'm not asking the question that they don't want me to ask. And
you've already established questions that you're gonna ask.
So one of my favorite books is Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis, where it's a fictional story about demons that are trying to take Christians out. And specifically, it's like, what weakness does the Christian have? Let's go exploit those. And so if you know that there's a darkness that wants to exploit your weaknesses, why don't you have your weaknesses exposed and bring it to the light and then have someone ask you about that? And if you bring that on the front, it doesn't feel like attacking.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It doesn't feel like someone's going like...
Well, and I think that something really good that someone that's the disciple-e, is it the discipler? The discipler can approach a certain, if the discipler sees a sin tendency that maybe isn't being brought up, then I think it is good to say, hey, what are your thoughts on talking about this topic? And just see how they respond.
Okay.
And so if you feel uncomfortable, then maybe that's something that you need to reflect on.
Right.
I also think it's important whenever you go into any sort of discipleship relationship, do it prayerfully and go into it with the mindset of, I will follow you as you follow Christ. And know that you have a body of believers. It's not just that one person in the church. There is a church full of elders and other believers and other disciple makers and other people being discipled that you can talk to and gather wise counsel from. This isn't a you and that person thing. It's a church thing. We are a body of believers.
Right. Okay. All right. So this last question, I'm going to kick old Jeff off, and I'm going to bring Robert Sass on up to the stage, to the stage, because we're in a live studio. And
This is like a sass sandwich right now. like a sass Oreo.
This is
Is it totally dumb that I think this is adorable?
This is adorable. Very adorable. I think Robert feels adorable. I think he loves being adorable. Okay, so Robert, here's a question. And so if you don't know who Robert is our elder chairman here at Wells Branch Community Church and the father-in-law to Katie Sass. And so that makes it that's why it's adorable. So Robert, welcome first off to the show. Make sure you get really close to the mic or else nobody will be able to hear you. First question is, or not first, the question that we have for you. The higher a person's role within an organization hierarchy, the less likely they are to be challenged on the decision they are making. We've seen many prominent pastors, spiritual leaders, religious leaders, church leaders fall due to this. How have you seen the leadership or lay leaders, which is non-paid people at Wells Branch Community Church, guard themselves from this pitfall?
Yeah, so just a little backstory. So when I came to faith, I came immediately into recovery from sex addiction.
Wow.
So with that, I automatically assumed that accountability was part of my walk, my Christian walk.
Oh, that's fascinating. And because I don't think a lot of Christians think like that, because they feel like, I don't need it, right? I feel like I
Right. Right.
Go ahead.
So immediately I stepped into discipleship with some pastors, and I automatically just saw that accountability was a part of discipleship,
right,
and necessary for not just leaders, but any and everybody who would follow Christ. That was the way.
Yeah.
And so I grew to always have accountability always, because if I didn't, I knew that I was exposed.
So how did you get to a place of being vulnerable in accountability so that when somebody asked you a question, it didn't feel like like that they were attacking you?
Man, I think in my heart, I knew anybody that would ask me those tough questions loved me, period.
So you saw that as love.
Yes.
So, and maybe this is where you've had a little bit of experience this over the past couple decades. What about a person that is asking this, where they're saying, people are attacking me or they don't accept me because I'm not living up to their expectation? Right. What is there a baggage issue there? Is there what would you?
Yeah. I think Jeff referenced that. I think there's some stuff that goes back to your childhood that could bring a lot of that stuff out. But I think ultimately it just takes a heart-to-heart talk with that person, because this person, as Chris preached on, is the deepest of relationships.
Right.
And at that point, if you're at that point in your relationship, it should bear a very heartfelt relationship of honesty and saying, hey, Jeff, when you asked me that, it just came across very legalistic.
I think you've said that to me a couple times about something where I've said something and it kind of hurt you, and you were really good. And I think this is where the SAS family must be just really advanced at emotional awareness, because you guys are all very, what's the right word? Very aware of your own hurt, and you're able to bring it up right then. So Katie with Ryan is very clear with, hey, that hurt me. And then like if I said something to you, you're very clear, oh, that hurt me. And I think that's a real gift that you two in particular have. But let me ask you this, sort of like going into a deeper, how soon, this is like, when do I ask them to be my accountability partner? That seems like a little, is there ever a point that's too soon? Because you're going right into the depths of that relationship. Is there somewhere I know you a little bit before I go to this place of accountability? I mean, what do you guys think on that?
I think God could use it either way.
You are like the ultimate, like, you're talking about birthing and bowel movements all in the first conversation.
I'm probably not the greatest person to ask, because I'm going to be like, oh, what an opportunity to like get to know them, So I do think there is an importance though of, there are deep, dark things that I wouldn't share with someone I just met. Right. So yeah, there should be a level of, I trust you. I would trust you to share this with you.
Robert, have you ever seen it go, I don't know, sideways with accountability, when you kind of went, I don't know if it's you. This is where, if you're in an accountability relationship, you're like instantly in the deep things. Has it ever not gone well because, I didn't realize I didn't know this person very well, or something like that?
No.
So for you, this has been a very successful thing.
Yeah, because I think I consider myself highly relational.
Yeah.
And I read body language. I think I can discern where we're at in our relationship.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And you've obviously seen the benefit of accountability that I think a lot of people haven't.
I think in part, too, something that Jeff didn't say, to his credit, is he wanted accountability.
Right.
And
right.
When someone comes to you and you begin a discipleship, because I think all relationships should be discipleship relationships to some degree, when that is the motive behind the time you spend with each other, then accountability just becomes a part of it.
Okay, so I really love where you're going in that direction. So for you, your greatest growth in the Christian life came through accountability.
Yes.
And so for you, accountability is the greatest source of love and joy and peace. Where, to be fair to some people, maybe their greatest place where they met Jesus was in preaching, and so they feel best when they are just alone with the Lord, or hearing, listening to sermons or whatever. And then there's an uncomfortability factor that comes with engaging another person, because they don't know how to bring up hurt. And the conflict resolution is not a strength. And then it becomes like a place of like mismatch gifting. And so one person just always feels attacked while the other person is feeling, what, we're doing great here. This is wonderful. And so I think there is a reality that just being, and I think this is where the person that has maybe a weaker background and isn't as emotionally gifted as these two are, that you're going to have to say, hey, listen, I'm not emotionally gifted to be able to deal with my emotions of understanding what it is when you're bringing that up. And I need to sort of process through how I feel about you even asking me that question or me bringing up these questions, because that's a challenge for me to even walk through. Right, Melanie?
Processing your emotions is a learned skill.
All right. Well, I mean, I really appreciate this, and I'm excited to talk more about discipleship in our next episode that we're going to be talking about specifically in evangelism. And so I know all of you out there in podcast land can't wait for that. We're going to bring Mr. Robert Sass back up here, and we're going to have Melanie McLemore and Jeff Mitchell. But Katie, thank you so much for joining us on this Pastor Plek's podcast. And if you have any questions that are involve faith, culture, or everything in between, just text us 737-231-0605 or go to pastorplek.com and leave your question or message for us there. And so from our house to yours, have an awesome week of worship. And cut.